welcome, welcome. Hopefully we'll have people joining us soon if they're not already here. And I guess I'm Lisa, and if you want to.
I am Anise.
And this is our first meeting for the Library Lived In, or our first broadcast for the Library Lived In. So I guess I should say we do a little bit of everything, but so this month was Shakespeare and going a little bit sort of classic literature. Little background, As You Like It is one of the comedies, 5-act play, was written somewhere between 1598 and 1600, romantic comedy, and pastoral themes, that sort of thing. So do you want to start with your star rating, what your overall impressions were?
Yes, I gave it 3 stars. I did like it, and I probably would have given it 4, except reading is not the ideal format for a play. So, solid 3 stars.
That's fair. I was torn. Between a 3 and a 4. And after all of the reading and background stuff that I've done since I've read it, I kind of want to say I'll read it again. But not because I loved it so much the first time, you know? So I'm going to say 3 too. But yeah, I would love to go see it, I think. I'd love to see it in person. So overall impressions outside of that?
No, just that I liked it, and I had seen an adaptation before I read it. So I think I was already a little bit predisposed to like it because I liked the adaptation that I had seen, which was Kenneth Branagh's one, that's set in Japan,
right?
Which I thought was really cool, even though they didn't change any of the dialogue or anything. They just had it set in Japan.
Which that one is on my library request list. I haven't gotten it in yet. It's nowhere online, just to rent. So
yeah,
hopefully I'll be able to see that one soon. The only one I've seen is the 1936 one, which was really interesting. It was really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. So I finished reading actually on October 1st because I had started reading it right away after last time. And so, like, I mean, I had it done for a while, so I was just like watching anything I could find, and that was the first thing I found. And I agree that it was interesting. I could tell that Rosalind was German.
I didn't realize that, but I didn't love her. I didn't love her, but oh well. I guess that we sort of digress. Maybe we should talk a little bit before the films. So I feel like, I don't know, the order that I wanted to go about this is maybe a little complicated because it's a play and you don't understand maybe some of it without going into like all the characters and what first. So anyways, I was going to do a summary, but I feel like it's very confusing if you just dive in. So setting, world building maybe first this time.
Okay.
Set in the forest of Ardennes, supposed to be France, country in France, like country area, not.
Yeah, that's what I gathered too, but I was a little confused at first, but then I was able to pick up that they were in France.
It's interesting because kind of a lot of the reading that I've done, all the different experts sort of debate about whether Shakespeare really meant it to be that way, an actual place in France, or whether it was actually based on an area outside of Stratford, or if it was a completely made up place, you know?
Well, yeah, wasn't his mother's maiden name Arden?
I think so. So it kind of
could have, you just never
went together a little bit.
Yeah.
In the end, I don't really know that it matters. I don't know, ultimately. But world building, there's not a whole lot he has to do.
No.
There's just not a whole lot. I think he does most of it through the conversations. Like what you need for context, you just pick up.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, everything is so like character and dialogue driven that the setting isn't super important.
Right. Right. All right. Characters. Shall we do characters first and then summary, or?
That sounds good.
Okay. If we want to go through every single person in the play, so how about just main characters or people that really hit you, struck out?
Well, when I was reading, I'm not sure that any of the characters stood out really, because it's just so hard to get a feel for who they are with just the things they say, if that makes sense. So I'm probably going to talk more about what I've watched since reading it, because that just makes so much more sense to me.
In this context with the play, I would agree. I agree. I think I don't know. There's a couple characters that stuck out as far as, maybe it's more in terms of what I've seen that's like made them stand out more. When I read it, it was kind of confusing for me to like keep track of who, but like to get a real feel for everybody. And one of the things, not to divert, but one of the things that made that stand out for me was one of the Ben Crystal videos that we posted in Goodreads. There's a comment he makes about how little stage direction is given by William Shakespeare in the plays, like versus other playwrights. And I thought, okay, that's my problem. Like, there's very little about how somebody is acting or what they're doing. It's all given in context of the dialogue. So that was my big, I think, struggle, like reading it versus seeing it performed.
Yeah, and I think that's partially the reason why I kind of want to go back and read it too. Like in his video, he did mention about like the verse and the syllables and the rhythm and everything, and that kind of gives you a hint as to what, like the relationship between the two people speaking and other things like that. And so now I'm kind of like, oh, well, if I had known that when I was reading it, it would have made more sense to me.
It also makes me want to do an insane syllable count of everything before I start reading, and I think that might be a little like a little crazy too much, but I'm tempted. So, all right. So the other two characters, I guess, that really, really stuck out to me, and maybe we'll just kind of come back to them a little bit later, was Touchstone. Because we came to him like that's how we came to the play, was the discussion of the name Touchstone, and the point wherever I found that he was referenced as, well, a touchstone is a thing that was used to test the quality of gold or silver, but then that being as a character to test the other characters' qualities, I guess.
Right.
The way that it's written. And so the whole time I was reading it, I was trying to see evidence of that. And not getting it until I started watching more of that. So that thought, and then kind of the double character of Rosalind and Ganymede, like how that kind of went back and forth. Summary. I feel like there's a giant.
Well, so about characters, I did want to say, when I was reading it, I found it kind of hard to judge the characters' motives just by what they say. And the link is the last link that I posted on Goodreads today, the documentary with Fiona Shaw. In that, she explained it, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And so what she said, I wrote it down because I thought it was so good. She said, thought and feeling are the same thing for the Elizabethans. These characters feel in extremis and express their feeling accurately. There is no subtext in Shakespeare. In this play, okay, no, not that far. Okay, so anyway, what she was saying is that everyone just says what they mean, which does not happen a lot in, I guess, most of the books that I've read. And so when I was reading it, I was trying to read more into it than what it actually said, and I was confusing myself and like not understanding that. But now that I know that, it makes a lot more sense.
Absolutely. I thought that point really hit home. I didn't quite make it to the end of that video, or that documentary, but most of it, and I really loved that. I was like, oh, okay, there isn't any like hidden motives. It makes a little bit more clear. It helped me like with Touchstone a little bit too. Some of the things that Rosalind was doing in the forest, I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Why are you doing what you're doing? And I guess it's because, yeah, a lot of what I read, there's an element of what are they really thinking? What are they really doing? So
yes, I agree.
That was good. So summary, I felt like, how do you even summarize this? Because there's so much going on. Without like telling the whole story of this entire play. So I guess, I don't know, like when I sketch down my summary notes, they kind of run into my theme notes all together. But I guess I'll just kind of quickly go through what I have and you jump in and you let me know. So you have the exiled Duke, and a group of his lords are living in the forest of Ardennes in France. And his daughter, Rosalind, is allowed to stay in the court with the new Duke, Frederick. The two dukes are brothers. And she's allowed to stay because she's best friends and cousins with his daughter, Celia. Until he starts getting nervous and paranoid, at which point he banishes her. And they leave together because Celia is so devoted that she can't be separated, and they leave together. So they also end up in the forest. And then alongside that, you have Sir Roland dies and leaves his estate to his older son, Oliver. And he kind of abuses his younger brother, or what's the right word? Neglects,
yeah, I didn't say that.
His younger brother, or his younger brother Orlando is, feeling all mistreated and his life is not worth, anything. And anyways, he ends up taking off too for safety in the forest. And so you have this whole collection of randomness going on in the forest. The girls take Touchstone with them from the court. He's the court fool. So we have all of this going on, and everybody and all their different types of love, people falling in and out of love. So we have Rosalind is in love with Orlando, but Orlando doesn't know she's in the forest because she's pretending to be Ganymede, right? I love this whole, like, is it Sylvius? Sylvius is in love with Phoebe. They're both country people, but Phoebe is in love with Ganymede, and Rosalind's like, no. I find it interesting. Touchstone, who is supposed to be the witty one, falls in love with like the simplest person in the play, so Audrey, and hands off another country boy.
I thought that was the best part of the whole play, when he runs off William.
Yes. Just because it's like so many threats in like a short period of time.
Yeah.
Just tells them, like, well, and the way he goes about it, like, so are you this person? And do you really love her? And do you really feel this strongly? Great, get lost. Which is pretty fantastic. So So anyway, all of that going on, and Rosalind is pretending the whole time, which I think this is kind of funny, but like, Orlando was pretty quick to convince to pretend. Like Rosalind as Ganymede asks Orlando to pretend that she's Rosalind and act out this whole pretend relationship. He said, no, I don't want to do that. And then he goes, okay, sure, I'll do that. Like, he was pretty quick to convince, I felt like.
Yeah, I agree. And the whole time I was just kind of thinking, I was like, would he really like do this? Like, would he go this far and just keep playing along with it?
Which is where I kind of got caught up in the motive portion of it. Like, Rosalind, I think, I feel like she's doing it for the sake of proving Orlando. You know,
Yes.
like how, you know, real are this guy's feelings? Is he going to stick around? But why? Yeah, why does Orlando go along with it? I mean, at first, he is no, I don't want, because it's on the pretense of solving him, or what's the word?
Curing him.
Yes, of his love, you know. And so, he says, no, I don't want to do that. But then turning around and saying, okay, I'll go along with that. Is it because he just needs to say what he needs to say? Like he needs to find an outlet for all his pent up, I don't know.
That could be a better outlet than riding on trees.
And probably cheaper when paper was scarce. I don't know. I feel like it makes things a little confusing for him, like internally, which comes up in that documentary that you posted too, like him trying to figure out how to express himself.
And I thought that was interesting because in that earlier film, and in the other one, the Shakespeare by the Sea adaptation that I posted, he just well, in the second one, he seems to just kind of think it's funny at first, and like it's not expressed in such a deep way, I guess. So I thought that was really interesting at what the actors are thinking about when they are acting this out.
Yes. And I'm sorry, what is her name again? Is Fiona?
Ah.
Okay. I stink at names. And I didn't write her name down.
You can just call her Aunt Petunia.
There you go, Aunt Petunia. Makes that point that like to be the best actor or actress, then you should think about your character. You should think about what are they thinking, what are they feeling, and take that kind of on yourself. And I do think that that's a sign of a good acting experience. And I think it does, like she talks about, that carries over to your audience. Your audience can tell if you are experiencing sort of, you know, that role for yourself. And I think that goes a long way.
I agree.
I think that's pretty awesome. So I guess Rosalind masterminds everybody's weddings. She ends up 4 weddings, right? All at the end. And gets everybody kind of paired off, nice and tied off there at the end. I thought, like, no loose ends, except for, I guess, poor William. But he kind of walked off, you know, pretty quickly.
Yeah, from reading it, he doesn't sound sad or anything. And like even in the adaptations I watched, he didn't really seem sad either.
I kind of feel like maybe, I don't know, maybe he doesn't get the focus that he should as a secondary character. Like, but yeah, maybe it didn't bother him as much as, I think obviously it didn't bother him as much as it could have, because he did walk off and didn't come back and have something to say about it.
Yeah.
So, and then of course everything gets made right at the end, because Duke Frederick comes back, and he's been converted and realized the error of his ways.
Yeah.
And decides to return everything that he's taken back to. They could just call him the senior Duke, right? I keep calling him the old Duke in my head. So everybody kind of goes their own ways, except for Jacques, who goes and lives a solitary life. Which, what did you think of that?
I don't know. I think as a character, he just kind of confused me. Just because, I don't know, he was always so sad, but like not really for any reason. And he's not like really super involved with everything either. He's just kind of there, it felt like to me.
Yeah, he's not really, that's a good point. He's not really involved with anybody, but he does have a lot to say. He comments quite a bit. So when I started trying to like piece out the theme of love in terms of all the different characters, he started to make sense to me because, not completely. I'm sure that somebody is going to watch this and say, she knows nothing about Shakespeare. But like you have paternal love, like with the Dukes, and what all do I have? Like you have like the devotion of the servant, like Adam who goes with Orlando, the love and devotion of like, I've been with your family, I've raised you.
Yeah.
You know
what I read is that Shakespeare liked to play Adam whenever they put As You Like It on.
Oh, really?
He would be Adam.
I didn't know. I heard, like I'd read several places that he would sometimes play characters, but not. That's interesting. I didn't know that one. Adam. Now I'm going to have to, when I read it again, I'm going to have to like look at Adam a little closer. You have William, whose love I feel like is not steadfast. Like, I'm in love with you, but not really. I'm more infatuated with you. When somebody else comes along, I'm going to be like, okay, I'll take a step back. You have brotherly love because Oliver and Orlando sort out their issues. You have Oliver and Celia. You have love at first sight. You know, they've known each other for 24 hours, I think, and then we're married tomorrow. So then to me, it makes sense a little bit about Jacques. Like, he's the one that has no love. Like, he's melancholy and sad and miserable, and he goes to live as a hermit. Like, he has no love. None of the types of love. He has no one.
That's sad.
Yeah. I feel bad for him at the end.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think about any of that stuff. You did a really good job.
Well, I don't know.
You did.
And I got rambling off on different thoughts, but that was at first I just thought it was all about Rosalind, but when I started kind of piecing it away, like everybody's there for some reason, right? So yeah, I feel like he's sort of the tragedy person in the play. So I don't know, it's a good thing he's pretend. Fictional, we don't have to feel too guilty about it. Anybody that hasn't watched everything that we watched this week or the last week, if you're on the Goodreads page, there's a bunch of links. Ben Crystal being a British actor whose father, David Crystal, what is the professional name for his field?
A linguist.
Linguist. Okay, there you go. And has studied like the British language far back. British and English languages quite a ways back. So that gives us like the background for anybody who has like no clue what we're talking about. And Ben Crystal has spent a lot of time with his dad working on like what Shakespeare would have sounded like at the time that it was performed, Elizabethan time period. So All right, go ahead. Sorry.
So, uh, so anyway, so in his videos, he mentions how you can hear parts of that accent in the American accent and Canadian and Australian and all the different accents in the British Isles. And so then after that, watching the 1936 version, which was the first film version of As You Like It, where it's kind of like the really proper received pronunciation with Laurence Olivier, and then that German actress who played Rosalind. It was interesting. But and then the Kenneth Branagh adaptation was received pronunciation also. And then the Shakespeare by the Sea, they used American accents, and that is the one that I liked the best.
Do you think it's because that's the one you know the best? Like as far as like you identify with that accent, you're familiar with that accent?
I think it's just because it was authentic. Because if they had been like, I mean, you can usually tell, even if someone is really good at an accent, you can tell that it's not their regular accent.
Right.
And so I think just as authentic, they spoke very quickly. They didn't like slow it down. It was more less of like that kind of reverential and that like cut off tone that Ben Crystal mentioned in his video. It was just like regular voices, regular accent.
Yeah.
I liked it very much.
Well, I can't wait to see that one. I did notice watching the 1936 one, it's so, it's very proper sounding, the accent. And you're right, it sounds not authentic. It sounds forced in a lot of cases. Like, maybe not through the whole thing, but there are times that you think, yeah, that's just not quite right. But I thought it was interesting in a couple of Ben Crystal's videos, he talks about, like he asks the audience members, what accent did they hear after he recites a piece in the original pronunciation? And how they come back with various areas, geographical areas. And a lot of times he says it's where you're from, where you're familiar with. And so that's why I was asking about, like, do you think it's what you know that you relate with? But I think too, I don't know, I think that hearing it differently kind of, like, it makes a difference in like what you walk away with.
Yeah, I agree. And when I was watching that Shakespeare by the Sea adaptation, like even though I had already seen 2 other adaptations and read it, like I was enthralled. Like it didn't take any extra effort to understand what they were saying, even though they only made a few small tweaks to the language, but most of it was original. But I was just like enthralled, and like Damon came in the room, and I got startled because I was so entranced with it, and I thought it was a lot funnier too, for some reason. And that could have been just because of some of the changes they made. You'll have to watch it because it was excellent.
I can't wait to watch it. I was trying to keep, like, I was like doing all my own research and things, but then I see you posting, so I'm like, oh, I have to go watch this. I know I like couldn't keep up with all of them, so I watched as many as I could. So, so I think I saw all but like 2. I'll have to go back and see those 2, and then I don't know, I'll add my thoughts on Goodreads. So, I liked hearing it in different ways, and a lot of the video clips and things that I've watched, I've been able to hear things in different accents and different pronunciations and different. I think it does add something to it. So,
right.
What did you think about, like when you watch the Ben Crystal videos, about the original pronunciation, like lending to jokes that we no longer hear because because we don't pronounce them that way anymore. Did you think like, well, how much did I miss then?
Yes, because I hadn't so that link, I posted the link to a clip that has Kevin Kline in Kenneth Branagh's adaptation, and he says the joke, and it is not funny. And like he's telling the joke, and everyone is like laughing, and you're just kind of sitting there, and you're like, that is not funny.
It's even worse. It's even worse, that same scene in the 1936. If you go back and watch that, just that scene in the 1936 version, it's exactly so the 10-minute clip or the 10.5-minute clip of Ben Crystal, if you go to the Goodreads and you watch that one, and he's standing in the middle of the New Globe Theater and he does that scene, the hour by hour scene, and he does it in the like the proper, what is it, the received pronunciation? Proper, you know. And he does it, and he's got like his arms like this, and he's like all proper, and then he goes, oh, and he's like, and everybody busts up laughing, and you're like, I don't get it. And that's exactly how it is in the 1936 version. They're all sitting around, and he's telling this joke, and they all bust up laughing, and you're like, what just happened? And I just kind of wonder, like, did somebody hold up a cue card and they're like, cue laugh for the last 500 years because nobody was getting the joke.
Yeah. And that was something too in the Shakespeare by the Sea adaptation. I was wondering if they were going to leave it in there since they were just speaking in regular American accents. And they cut that part completely out, which I thought was a good choice because they other kind of like funny little things. But they took that one out, which I thought was a good move.
Because it doesn't make sense unless you know.
No.
But I did find myself wondering, like, what else did I miss? Because there's only so long I can hold that accent in my head, especially because I haven't studied it or been trained in it, you know. And so there's only so long in my head when I'm reading the play that I can hear, you know, Ben Crystal in my head reading. And then I'm like, I don't know. And it makes me kind of like, I need him here, like telling me, what am I missing? So I did find that was interesting, but I kind of want his little book to go with it so that I can know what I'm.
Did they have a dictionary? He and his dad wrote a dictionary.
Have you checked it out? Have you?
No, I just looked at it like the little preview thing on Amazon, you know, where you can see a few of the pages inside. I went and looked at it, and it. Well, I'd have to brush up on the little pronunciation things because it's all written out that way, you know. But I thought it was cool.
That would be awesome. When I saw it on his, if you go to his website, it's like an author page, an author tab. So I saw it on the list there, but I did not think in terms of like phonetic spelling or anything like that. I was totally thinking like explaining Shakespeare words, you know, just what is the definition.
Oh yeah, it does that also. It does that also.
I might just need that. Let's see. You posted an article, Think Like Shakespeare, about the way that we approach literature.
Yeah.
And approach. What did you think? Did you have any thoughts? Like,
I liked that article a lot. I liked the idea that it said about wanting to know about everything that you read, like reading things that you don't know about and words that you're not familiar with, and how good that is for your mind. I really appreciated that, especially with the homeschool curriculum that we use. That's part of it is like explaining things when they have questions, but also just like reading the big words. And if you read enough big words, then you can usually figure it out by the context that it's in. and then you know a new big word. And I think I'm trying to pull it up here.
Sorry.
I just liked the idea.
Yeah, I didn't mean to throw you throw you under the bus.
What did you think of it?
I think it's fascinating, and I love that we have two different perspectives on that. Like, because you did homeschool and you're homeschooling now, and I don't have the experience on either end. I have public school, like both as a child and as a parent. I love, it says in there that we have this erroneous idea that we can create something from nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I love that because I just think how many times that has been an expectation,
Mm-hmm.
either presented to me or that I have developed in myself, that I should just be able to do this. And that's realizing that that's not a thing, that you have to take your whole experience and put it into whatever you're making. And the richer your experience that you come from, then the more you're going to be able to put into what you're creating.
Right.
But that's not any sort of plagiarism or any sort of, you know what I mean? You're not taking away from somebody else's. I think there's the honeybee symbolism, like the honey or the bee goes around and collects from all the different flowers in order to make the honey.
Right.
It's its own creation, but it had to take from something. And I love that idea. You put your experience into what you create.
Yes, I liked that a lot as well. And in Fiona Shaw's documentary, she mentioned that as well. At the very end part, what she said was, oh no, maybe it wasn't her that said it, but it was in that documentary. One of the directors they were talking to said that you should allow yourself to interpret the play through the lens of your own life and emotions and experience, and that's part of the reason why Shakespeare's plays have lasted so long and are so much a part of our culture today, is because in his text he allows you to kind of put yourself into it. And someone else in that documentary had said something like, the definition of a classic is that each new generation is able to find themselves in it, which I think is very true.
Agreed. And I think because he deals with things that humans can relate to, like basic human, I don't want to say human nature, but basic human experiences are what allows people to be able to step into that. So, for sure. I think that's an idea that I think we should pass on. Like, more people should be aware of, that you can take and share that. And I think that's what is so great too about literature, art, music, is that, each person that walks up to it can say, no, it means this, or no, I feel this when I look at it, or no, because there's so much that you bring to it yourself.
Right. I like that.
For sure. Yes. What did you think? I'm going to go back to a couple things I skipped, if that's okay. What did you think about, like, something I read said that this is the play with the most songs in it out of all of Shakespeare's plays? What did you think of all of the songs?
I mean, reading them was fine. In the 1936 version, I was just kind of wondering, I was like, how do they decide what tune to use? And then in the Shakespeare by the Sea version, they do it in a very funny way. So I think the guy's name is Amiens or something like that. So he's the bard guy who's always singing. And so they have him like up there with a guitar, and like he really, really gets into it. Um, so I preferred that approach.
What about the one set in Japan? What is the music then influenced? Is it Japanese style music? Is it?
I know that like the background music is. It's been so long. I've only seen it one time, and it was several years ago, so I don't remember. I'm pretty sure in that clip that I posted, the Kevin Kline clip, it has one of the parts where he's being sung to, and it's not a Japanese tune. He's just singing it, but Jacques is sitting in a Zen garden while he's listening. So
I'll have to check it out. I ran across something somewhere while I was reading. It's not a link we posted. Of course, I didn't do that, but it was talking about when Shakespeare was writing his plays, he would work with particular people to write the music for the songs. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was interesting because, of course, they gathered the plays up and printed them much later. Mm-hmm. It's not like there's sheet music included, with each of the plays. But the fact that somewhere at some point there was music that went with the songs. And I didn't research it enough, but I wonder if that, if that's turned up, like if they have copies of that somewhere, or for some of the plays at least. Mm-hmm. And it did name at least one of the people that he often worked with. And so that kind of made me wonder, like, do some of them use authentic music? Mm-hmm. Like
that is interesting.
Ben Crystal's group that he works with, I wonder, like, they try to do a lot of things original, like maybe do they look up the original music? I don't know. That was kind of a train of thought I got lost on but didn't come back to. So kind of wondering about that.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to hear. Maybe that's something I'll have to pursue. It'd be interesting to hear, what did the songs actually sound like back in Elizabethan times. Did you find yourself wondering at all, because you brought up the point about how the plays were for everyone? They weren't just for the hoity-toity group. They're for everyone. Right. Do you find yourself wondering at all, like, we know that Shakespeare and his group performed for the Queen. We know that he performed in front of royalty just as well as for the common person. Like, how did you walk that line without, like, being funny to both without offending anybody, or with at least without offending royalty and getting, himself in trouble? Did I lose you?
Okay, I thought I lost you. It like froze. So the question was, how did he walk that line between being funny and going too far?
Yes, and like, yeah, how do you stay out of trouble? Because some of those jokes or some of the commentary, social commentary, I thought, I really wonder how well that would have gone over.
I don't know. I think he was probably kind of a bold person. And especially, so he married his wife when he was 18 and she was like 26 or something. And so, I mean, that was not your usual arrangement, because I think I watched this documentary on Netflix. I don't remember what it was called, something Shakespeare. It just came out this year, but they were talking about it, and I think you had to be like 21 to marry or something like that. And so it seemed like it was kind of like a shotgun wedding. But I don't know. I think he was obviously a very successful person, but I think he probably had And I mean, as an actor, since he acted in his plays also, I think a lot of times actors have those kind of bold personalities.
Agreed. Um, so like in some of the historical reading, his father was in trouble at some point with the Elizabethan powers that be. And he would have had to have been bold to a certain degree in order to not be like cowed by that, to not say, oh, I'm just gonna like stay over here out of trouble, but to go ahead and put himself in the spotlight so directly. But then I wonder too, like some people just sort of have a natural knack and understanding of like, this is acceptable and this is not, and this is how far I can push it. And other people have like no clue and just blunder through everything. That's more me.
Yeah.
That's more me. And I kind of wondered too, like if that was more his personality, just that he kind of knew,
No, and I think that shows in his plays that he was kind of an intuitive person. And he just has like a way of saying things that make sense. And that there was a quote I wrote down that explained it exactly what it was. Where was it? I thought I wrote it down. I don't know. It was something like he could say something in a specific way that is universal, something like that. And I thought that described it fairly well.
That was. I also kind of wondered, one of the things a lot of people comment about is that he is able to kind of be true to the different characters, their voice, that he can see and accurately portray how it would look to each character. And thus he can kind of portray their truth to the situation. And I wonder like how much that helped to kind of bring that around,
Yeah.
So everybody has somebody to relate with. Everybody, has somebody to understand.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that was something that was mentioned in Fiona Shaw's documentary also, was that's why Ganymede, why she could say some of the things she said, was because she wasn't saying it as a woman or as a man. She was just kind of like her own category. And so, like, if a woman had said something like that, you would think of it one way or a man another. But since it was just kind of outside of all that, of a woman pretending to be a man, pretending to be a woman or whatever, that it just like took everything away, and then it just was what it was.
That's a good point too. And the very end of the 1936 production for the epilogue, so Rosalind comes out and does her little speech. Do you know what I'm talking about, where it kept fading, where she was like dressed as Rosalind one minute and then dressed as Ganymede one minute, and like it kept going back and forth and back and, which I thought like that's very like 1930s Hollywood to kind of be dramatic there. And obviously not what would have happened in Shakespeare's time. But I kind of thought about that too, in terms of, I don't know, like really bringing home that point that she was this ambiguous character the whole time and could have all this perspective and wisdom of this other character,
Yeah, and I looked on Wikipedia, and that version was like not well received. Like it didn't get great reviews. So, and I can see why. But definitely you have to watch that other one. The Shakespeare by the Sea was so good. I kind of want to like send them a message and ask for like a DVD. I thought it was super good.
I will pull that one up. I didn't see that one in time for today. So
I know. I just kept finding more stuff, and I was like, should I post it or did I already post enough? And I just posted it. So.
there's never such thing as too much. And I get, so like my last thought, I guess, before like my last tangent. So going back to Touchstone and Ganymede's like names and their characters, and tying that in with the article you posted about Think Like Shakespeare. So this idea that you bring all of your information with you and you walk into this experience where you're creating something. So Shakespeare has like all of this Greek mythology and everything that shows up in his plays. And one of the things that came up was, why is Ganymede's name? Like, where did it come from? Why is it what it is? And he was, I have to read this, sorry. Like, he was a Trojan boy that Zeus took as a lover and a cupbearer of the gods. And it's also one of the brightest 4 satellites of Jupiter, which was discovered by Galileo. Just kind of like interesting if he's going to pick, if she was going to pick a boy's name, like she randomly is picking a boy's name at that moment, but it would have been somebody that Zeus, you know, chose, that was chosen by this great god at the time, you know.
Right.
And then Touchstone, of course, we already talked about, like his symbolism, I guess. Or and I really didn't think he was all that witty. Somebody's going to tell me off for saying that, but I think he really did set off kind of the brilliance of some of the other characters by being who he was.
Yeah, no, I agree. Especially when I was reading it, like, especially near the beginning when Touchstone was speaking, I was like, what is he talking about? So that, I think he definitely comes off much better in performance. I thought he was okay in the 1936 version, but much, much, much better in the Shakespeare by the Sea.
That's just gonna have to be
the other thing I liked about that performance was that they played to the audience. Like, there are a couple of little things in there that are like specifically for modern audiences, and they like more of like what Ben Crystal mentioned in one of his talks about that connection, and like in the Globe in 2 p.m. in the afternoon, like there's no separation between the audience and the performers. And they really used that in this performance, which I think is part of the reason why it went over so well.
Because it was live, and that it was, well, not live, but I mean, like, you didn't have a separation. That will be my goal next to do. Well, any last thoughts that you want to add to As You Like It?
I think we've gone over everything that I had written down. Nope, I did like it.
I think it was a good experience. I have read, I don't know, I have read Shakespeare before, maybe 4 or 5 of the other plays, and then I haven't read all of the sonnets, but I've read several of them. But this was a whole new experience, and it was much better after having done some research and realizing that what I learned at school was not all that there was to learn, you know. There wasn't, like you said, one way to read it or one way to understand it. So.
And that was something that I liked too in that in Ben Crystal's video where he was the Once and Future Shakespeare, when he started out and he's like reading it like in this kind of awkward, kind of proper way. And that's what you think it's like, but it's not like that.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that, and I think that is really cool.
I wish that was the experience I wish that everybody in school got to have the Ben Crystal experience. And maybe not the Laurence Olivier experience.
Yeah. So what I was going to share was that so we just finished reading the Charles and Mary Lamb version of Midsummer Night's Dream. So reading this to my 6-year-old, she did not really I could understand it better than she could just because I'm older and because I was the one actually reading it out of the book. Right. She could not understand it very well until we pulled out our little figurines. I bought like a little set of like little villagers and little fairies. And so what we started doing was, as I read it, you would act it out with the figurines. And then it clicked, like right away. She got it. She was laughing. And when we were done, she was like, let's read more.
Aww.
It was really, really cool. It was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, it's such a different thing. And I've read other plays, not Shakespeare plays, and I've never really thought anything about it before. I mean, realizing the format is different, but not really realizing like how much am I missing by reading this instead of seeing it, having the visual. There's so much there's not filled in for you. The thoughts and the emotions and the scenery or anything. So that's fantastic. So if we'll wrap up as you like it. You have the delight of picking next month's book, and I saw you put a little post, but what is our book for this next go round?
Our book for this next month is going to be Weird Sisters by Terry Pratchett. It is not the first book in the series, but I already checked, and it's fine to start there, according to everybody on the internet. So,
and we all know that everybody on the internet is right.
Yes, and so we will read that, and he pays a lot of homage to William Shakespeare in this book. There's even a character in the book based on William Shakespeare, and there's familiar elements taken from Hamlet and Macbeth and King Lear. So that should be really fun to read. I'm excited.
Continue our train of thought a little bit. And Terry Pratchett is good fun. So that should be an adventure. And that'll put us on November 15th. Will be our next chat. So good fun, and see you guys next month. Thanks for watching our book discussion of William Shakespeare's As You Like It. Please subscribe and look for more interesting discussions in the future. Comment below. What's your favorite work by Shakespeare?